Hello, and welcome to Visit California's the Dream365 Project Hangout On Air. I'm Carrie Whitaker, Communications Manager at the Google Brand Lab, Google's brand innovation center where we help leading brands navigate today's complex digital ecosystem. We're partnering today with Google Travel to bring you a best-in-class case study around how Visit California developed and launched a new content strategy and campaign to promote the state to aspiring visitors. Joining me today are two graduates of the Brand Lab who are part of the client and agency teams behind the campaign. Please welcome Traci Ward, Director of Consumer Marketing at Visit California, and Tammy Haughey, Account Director leading Brand Strategy and Management at MeringCarson, Visit California's agency of record. Thanks for joining me today.
Hi, Carrie. Thanks for having us.
Hello. Why don't we kick this off with a brief overview of the campaign, and then we can get into more specifics, and I'll ask Tracy and Tammy a few questions. In February, Visit California launched the Dream365 Project, an exciting content-centric initiative designed to celebrate dreams and dreamers in my beloved home state of California. The campaign included a 24-hour takeover of the YouTube masthead, which you're seeing a screenshot of now, as well as the rollout of video content and innovative display formats that we have called Lightbox and TrueView. The inspirational videos helped increase California travel search volume by 21% and gave the organization a solid platform on which to build future promotions. We recently published a case study on Think with Google, which if you haven't had a chance to read by now, the link is included on the event page, as well as you're seeing it up on the screen right now. But we're about to dig deeper and get a behind-the-scenes look on how Visit California pulled off such an inspiring campaign. Before we jump into it, we want to share a couple reminders. We'd like to encourage everyone on this Hangout to submit questions on the right-hand side of the video, and we'll address them towards the end. If you see a question that somebody else has posted that you'd like to get answered, just hit the +1 button. Okay, Tracy and Tammy, let's get started. Tell us how Visit California got its start in digital marketing and how your approach has evolved over the past few years.
Sure, that's an interesting question for us. I think we've always had a really successful offline campaign, which made our entry into the online or to the digital space a little bit slower, I think. So in 2006, that's, I would say, when we made our first real entry into digital marketing, and it was very tactical. It was more about where are consumers shopping for travel, and let's make sure that California has a presence in those places. So we had some pretty sizable OTA promotions at that time. And then we started to see how digital was moving and becoming a more important part of the connections ecosystem, and we started to attempt to move the brand into the online space. And our first attempts in that were really promotional focused. So things like online games, ways to engage with consumers in that digital space. And then from there, we took more to let's take our offline assets, the television commercials, all the things that had worked so hard for us for so long, and start to move those into the digital space. So we were doing things like pre-roll and using those videos in online viewing environments. And then, as you just introduced this last year, we kind of dove in headfirst with a pretty massive campaign.
Okay, well let's go there then. Tell us about the Dream365 project and how the idea came about.
Yeah, so last year we actually unveiled a new consumer brand platform. So California Dream Big. And when we were originally, we did a lot of research to get there, and when we were originally concepting around that, we were like, when we take this to market, we want to do it in a really big way. We want to make sure that it's visible to the consumer, they know what it is, and we're making that really big splash. And so we started ideating with the agency team at MeringCarson and thinking about how we could do that. And the Dream365 project was the manifestation of that brainstorming.
Okay. Before we get into more about that campaign and what you did, just generally, what were your marketing goals?
Our marketing goal is always about driving travel to California. So our ultimate measure of success is how we can move people into the state. So, we do sit very top of funnel. So for us, it's all about awareness, driving inspiration, and ultimately intent to travel.
Okay. What about the Google properties that you used? Obviously, YouTube was a big part of the campaign. I mentioned our display formats, TrueView and Lightbox. Can you speak a little bit about why you picked those solutions?
Certainly. Well, first and foremost, this was a global initiative. So we needed to be able to do something across several countries, 4 in this case. So we launched across the US, Canada, the UK, and Australia. And so we needed a platform to be able to do that. Google obviously is a global leader, and we felt like it would be a great partnership to kind of look through the lens of how we might deploy. So what we wanted to do is really look at how do you take something like the platform of Dream Big and how do you launch it in a big way, and how do you do something that reinforces the abundance that California has to offer, which is our point of differentiation. You know, we have just about everything possible in California that somebody could be seeking. And so the goal with the launch of this was to really be able to showcase that through the lens of Dream Big and kind of bring to light all the ways that people dream in California. And that was the manifestation of the YouTube masthead takeover. So that component of it was really about, okay, we've got this for 24 hours. What do we do with it? And I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe that this had been done before. Usually when somebody comes in and buys the masthead, and obviously there's 365 positions a year for that 24-hour period, you know, you go in and you do something, and there's a lot of cool stuff that was done. We were able to look at a lot of different iterations, but we thought, okay, if we're trying to showcase abundance and we're trying to really give people this dreaming, what if we did 24 videos and we did one every single hour, and we changed the masthead every single hour? And so that's kind of how it came to be. We felt like it was a great way to showcase the state and to kind of bring the platform to life as we launched it. And then obviously, when you have 24 pieces of video content, you want to get people to watch them, and so the other Google properties really helped with that, both TrueView and the Lightbox units. We also used the display as traffic driving into the custom gadget that was created for the Dream365 project.
Okay, great. And you ran this on desktop and mobile, right? Cross-device experience?
That's right, we did.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, if you're not thinking cross-screen, you're probably not doing a very good job marketing today. So yes,
I have my mobile device.
But yeah, we've been talking about a multi-screen strategy for the last couple of years and really looking at how do we start to make sure that what we're doing is deploying across screens as we go, you know, deeper into the digital space. So what we did was actually built to be optimized on mobile.
Okay, great. So as I mentioned, I work on the Brand Lab team, and both of you attended a Brand Lab workshop last spring. So I'd love to hear a little bit about what you learned in the Brand Lab and how that applied to this campaign specifically.
Yeah, we loved Brand Lab. We felt very fortunate to be invited to be a part of it. I know some of the biggest consumer brands out there have been attending Brand Lab. And I think if I remember, we were one of the first. There were only maybe 2 other travel companies that had been to Brand Lab before us, and we may have been the first DMO, possibly the second. So we felt very honored to be invited, and we appreciated that opportunity. And I think our VP of Marketing put it the best. You know, we don't often have an opportunity to take the senior marketing leadership from our organization, the senior leadership, and all of the brain trust from our agency team and get them all together in one room, off-site in a place that there's no interruption. I think we checked our cell phones at the door probably. That was probably a requirement. So, you know, that in and of itself, I would say, was the biggest benefit to Brand Lab for us. And we've been talking for a long time, and there was, you know, some fun conversations with the agency team about what the role of digital in our program should be. And we know that we are getting solid ROI against our offline programming. How much can we really justify moving those funds from that offline space that we know drives ROI into the online space? And you know, the Brand Lab really forced us to have those conversations and take them even further. And then through all of the tools and the knowledge that the team at Brand Lab had, were able to show us case studies and, you know, some of that, those real results for how other brands had tackled just that same question. And you know, I think that the biggest takeaway for us, and this is what you saw come to life in the Dream365 project, is just that there are so many ways you can use content in your marketing program, and at the end of the day, content is just marketing. And so thinking about it that way breaks down some of those barriers of channels and all of those things. It's more about connecting with your consumers in meaningful ways.
Yeah, I think one of the things that was great about Brand Lab was through the case studies, we were able to see kind of the content ecosystem and looking at the framework for content that allows you to kind of think about how you get to people through different lenses. And so, you know, we're very adept at television, as Tracy mentioned, and starting to migrate our television into digital. But beyond that, what do we do? And I think the constructs that we were able to walk away with from Brand Lab were very helpful as we started to get into, okay, we're going to create 24 pieces of content. What should we do?
Yeah.
How do we do it?
Let's talk about that then. I'd love to hear how you went about developing 24 videos, curating them, and getting everything ready for the campaign.
Yeah, well, we actually we did take the construct from the Brand Labs and started to lay out really kind of the spectrum of created content. So that video content that is basically concepted and produced by MeringCarson, looking at third-party creators and how we work with either influencers or other proven content providers or networks to help us fill that content bucket, and then also curating content, because we had a finite budget to do this. We didn't have all the money in the world to go out and just do these shoots. And so we had to look at how do we kind of fill this within the budget allocation that we had, and curation was a very important part of that as well. So that's really how we went about it. We had content that we had shot while we were doing production of our TV commercial Dreamers, and what we did differently than what we've done in all the years past is we had 2 camera crews. So we had a B crew that was there doing just made-for-digital content and getting at some of the storytelling that was part of the 24. We then did briefing documents that we sent out to creators like Soul Pancake and Matador Networks and other proven content creators, and based on their responses, kicked off and had them engaged with us. We did crowdsourced content, so we wrote a brief and went to Pop Tent, which is probably one of the better-known crowdsourcing companies. And we got 98 submissions back of completed videos from Pop Tent. We used 3 of those in the 24, and then we subsequently went back and grabbed a couple more after we launched. And then we curated a lot, and our curation process in this case was really just us kind of hunting down good content. You know, we had people scouring YouTube and trying to find those things that aligned with the promise of Dream Big and that we felt were going to help round out the storytelling, because we're trying to showcase abundance, as I mentioned. And so we had a lot of box checking going on to make sure that we were covering all of the different kind of pillars that we looked through, geographies, making sure that we had family content and culinary content, and really representing that swath. So it was a pretty robust process to get to the 24.
Yeah, and I think what was great about it is it forced us to think about things very differently. We've always been really heavy in the created content space. MeringCarson's amazing storytellers, and they've been doing that on behalf of our brand for a really long time. And so, but our CEO has been telling us for years, since she first started going on YouTube probably, look at all these other people that are creating such great California content. Why are we not tapping into that? We've got to be able to use that in some way. And I think that this campaign manifested itself perfectly in the ability to do that.
That's great. What out of all these videos, 24 videos, what type of content do you think has been most interesting to people? Have you had the most traction with? We've seen the Bob Burnquist video, we have it up, but I'd love to hear kind of from your side, what are people really attracted to?
It's interesting because it's kind of it continues to shift, which is really interesting. So right out of the gate, the Bob Burnquist floating skate ramp video took off. It went viral. It got picked up by a lot of news outlets. We had people like ESPN calling and requesting the asset to use on their channel. So there was a lot of buzz around that piece of content, which is really exciting. I mean, I think we thought that piece would do really well. I think what we found is that the content that has an element of surprise in it, or that is especially awe-inspiring, seems to get the greatest traction. And so we've seen the made-for-digital content that was created coming out of our TV shoot, both this floating skate ramp, the stupid tall bike, which is Richie Trimble. He built this 20-foot bike. Now he's broken the Guinness Book of World Records. So those kinds of things I think are fascinating for people, and they've gotten great traction. But then we're also seeing things like there's a piece of content from Pop Tent called Zoom, and it was a little car that was a stop motion journey through California. That has taken off like wildfire. And I was just looking at the numbers this morning, and the Edward Sharp Dreamers piece has just surpassed, well, it's actually doubled in the last 14 days. It's at 1.4 million views now. So that was really exciting to see too. So, you know, we're looking at this and saying, okay, people really like the content that's being created and that's truly kind of directly out of the brand play. But we're also seeing curated content, Coachellated, which is a video where a guy strapped a camera, a GoPro camera.
Yeah.
He's about 7 feet tall, and he shot Coachella with his camera from his head. That's kind of taken off. So it's neat to see the traction of all the different types of content. And again, as we continue to use TrueView, that's something that we've seen is once we went from trying to move people into our gadget on our channel to watch the videos, and we actually just deployed the full videos through the TrueView system, we're getting great engagement in TrueView, and actually people who are completing watching entire videos within the TrueView platform, which is really surprising. I mean, that's an ad unit. So it's great to see that. And so I think what TrueView's done is it's started to really help push these things out, and they're getting greater momentum now because of the use of that. So we've been really pleased with how that's performed.
Yeah, and I think that's an important learning, because I think, you know, how we would have looked at marketing 2 years ago was very much about how many people can we pull into our channels. So how can we use offline, online, whatever that medium is, to get people back to a Visit California owned domain where we can then educate them about the bounty and the beauty of California. And I think, you know, to do digital well, you've got to shift that mindset a little bit. And I think that's what some of the learnings out of this campaign have taught us, is that, you know, you can't always think about the ultimate goal as pulling them into your channel. That exposure to the message, in the same way that we're exposing them to message online, counts for a lot. And that's what I think TrueView has allowed us to do, is push that message out there, get it in front of the right people, and then, you know, we'll measure it on the back end like we do our offline media.
Have you seen traction from people kind of outside of the U.S. in those core markets? Obviously, you were focused at the beginning on the core markets. Like, what's been surprising about potentially who's been watching these videos, or who's been?
Yeah, I think that was another, you know, really good learning coming out of the campaign. When you talk about who was watching, I think, you know, the #1 misconception would have been, oh, you're on YouTube, you're going to catch all those 18-year-old kids who want to watch people crash, you know, like all the action videos YouTube's so well known for. And I think, you know, what we were very pleased to see was how on target the viewership was. So right there in our core demo of that 25-54 audience. And then to your point, we had paid media in 4 markets, but we actually saw huge reach outside of those 4 markets. No surprise, Brazil was one of the top, you know, not in those 4 markets that performed really well, with Bob being from Brazil and that video kind of going viral. We got a lot of reach there, but also into some European markets. I think Germany, France, if I remember correctly, kind of rose out of it as well. And I think, you know, what that reminded us is we are a global brand. While we don't have the budget necessarily to do global consumer advertising, we've got boots on the ground in a lot of other markets, and campaigns like this help us to reach those people in ways that we wouldn't otherwise.
Yeah, we've had, I think when I last checked the numbers, 25% of our views were coming from markets outside of the paid media markets where we've launched this campaign. So that's pretty good.
Pretty good, yeah.
Awesome. Well, I know that we want to take some audience questions in a minute, but I'd love to hear sort of the future of the Dream365 project. Will it live on? And then maybe just some high-level, you know, metrics that you have coming out of it.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, Dream365 is really kind of the center of what the brand stands for, and the platform is really about the idea that California is a place that inspires dreams and dreamers 365 days a year. It's always been inherently part of what we do, and I think what we're really trying to hone in on now is to be able to tell the story every day and to tell it in unique ways. And I think the digital landscape gives us the ability to be always on with consumers today with compelling content. So yeah, we're working on Chapter 2 right now.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, let's, here we go. We'll take question #1. The question is, you created a really amazing campaign which authentically showcases some of the amazing destinations in California. What was the biggest challenge in executing and measuring the success of the campaign? This question is from Charlene.
So I would say the biggest challenge from an executing standpoint is the sheer manpower that it takes to get 24 pieces of content, not only in their long-form video content, but the teasers needed, the ad units needed to fill the masthead. Like, to switch that out every hour on the hour, as Tammy said, you know, to our knowledge, we were the first brand to do that. It was a huge undertaking from a resourcing perspective. I also think, you know, that ability to disconnect ourselves a little bit from the need to control every second of every piece of content. That's how the agency is used to working, because that's what we drive them towards, perfection in every video execution we put out. And I think, you know, what we were able to come to in this campaign is that sometimes 99% is okay. And so getting our creative directors at the agency away from this, like, every single frame has to be perfect, to the gist of the video is right on brand and is delivering the best message, and it's going to work for the campaign. So I think from an execution standpoint, it really was about just the quantity of work.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, getting through the production cycle to get all the masthead units created and test, you know, that was a huge undertaking. But, you know, once we were live, it was pretty smooth sailing from there. So I will say a funny thing is we were at one point considering doing an actual live cast. Oh. So we were going to try to do one of the 24 units where we'd actually have a live feed coming in. And finally, it was actually our team at Google who said,
you might not want to do that.
I don't know. Yeah. A little ambitious, maybe.
Maybe that's round 2, Tim.
No, that's for chapter 2. You have chapter 2 that you just told me. So.
Exactly.
Oh, awesome. And I guess, I mean, just speak, you know, to Tammy and Tracy, your points about kind of letting go of control. When you were curating the videos, what was that experience like, and just sort of kind of giving up that creative control of your brand message?
Yeah, I mean, I actually think, and Tammy can probably speak better to how it felt in the creative war room when the creative team was doing all of this. But I think the curated stuff actually was maybe a little bit easier, because these were videos that were out there that existed, and they were able to look at them, and there's so much for them to weed through. That was probably the bigger challenge. But it was sort of like they got that was somebody else's point of view, and that we were pulling that point of view into the campaign. I think the created, the custom created stuff that the agency didn't do, but whether it was the Pop 10 submissions or the Matador or the Soul Pancake, was the one that was a little tougher, because they still felt a certain level of ownership to that content, because they were leading the concept, the briefing of the process. And so for them, it was like, well, that's not exactly how we would have executed against that idea. And so I think those were the ones that were probably a little harder.
Yeah, but I think everybody was pretty happy with where we netted out, and we've learned a ton, obviously, coming out of that. Not the least of which is that a lot of different kinds of content are relevant to people. Some people might think one thing's really awesome and not the other thing. So you really do have to have diversity. And I've been sitting in a lot of Google Hangouts related to content lately with YouTube masters, and that's the one thing that you read in terms of best practice. It's like everything doesn't have to be high quality. Everything doesn't have to be of one particular type, and so it's important that you look through that lens, and we learned a lot about that through this process.
I loved the Band of Horses video, the show at the Hollywood sign. I'm a fan of Band of Horses, and so I particularly like that video. But okay, awesome. I'm gonna just remind everybody that they can submit questions. There's a Q&A app up, so feel free to go ahead and do that. And we're going to take another question. This one is from Logan, and it is, what is your favorite part of the campaign?
Oh, man.
Just one.
In terms of which video, or?
I would say just like generally the experience, or like if you have a kind of a personal favorite or top 1 or 2 videos. Be good to hear that.
I mean, I'll be honest, my personal, we had a lot of these conversations when the campaign launched, and I think everybody had their favorite. My personal favorite actually is the Zoom video that Tammy was mentioning earlier. I just think it's such a unique way to showcase the state, and it's not something that we ever would have concepted or done on our own. In fact, if Dave, our creative lead at the agency, would have brought that to us, we probably would have laughed at him. Yet here it is, and now it's performing incredibly well, and it's just super cute. I mean, but more macro than that, not looking at a specific video, I really think that what I enjoy about the campaign is that diversity element, but it also punctuates the importance of what we've always done so well, which is know who we are as a brand. We've got that common thread that ties all of the videos together. So even though they're very diverse in terms of what activity they're showing, what part of the state they're showing, whether they're making you laugh, making you cry, freaking you out because you're like, why'd that person do that? There's something about all of them that brings them back to that California promise of dream big, and I think that that's pretty amazing that we were able to pull that off.
Yeah, I think too, this business of content, which is what everybody's in today, it's overwhelming, I mean, I'll be honest with you, we weren't content experts going into this, and it was kind of scary, and we were all kind of felt like we were going blind a lot of times, but I feel like my favorite part of it is that it forced all of us collectively as a team, both agency and client, to kind of get outside our comfort zone and try something new and learn as we go and realize that we're probably going to have some bumps along the way, right? But that we're moving forward in a landscape today that is so increasingly complex, and that if we want to stand out and if we want to be true to what California's DNA is about, right? We're pioneers, we're trendsetters, we're leaders in California, so we should be doing leading things with our marketing program. And while it was probably very uncomfortable at points along the way, I think that we all are very proud of where we've netted out, and it's put us into a great place as we go forward.
That's awesome. Do you want to share one of your favorite videos that we haven't mentioned now?
So my favorite video of the ones that Mering created is the and this was actually a joint effort too, so I don't know if it was all Mering, but I love the Edward Sharpe video. I love the storytelling of it. I think he's very visionary, and I think it's fascinating. But the other one that I loved was also, believe it or not, from Pop 10, and it's called Cali Chicagoan. And it's about this guy who lived in California and ended up having to move back to Chicago, his hometown, and he misses it so much that he brings a little bit of sunshine and kind of brightness to Chicago during a really gloomy winter day. It's really well done. He's very just endearing, and that's really one of my favorites. I really love it.
I like that one too. And I actually, the Edward Sharpe video, I was watching them again a couple days ago, and I wrote down one of his quotes about dreaming, and he says, "Dreaming is being willing to fail, and being willing to fail and then succeeding is the most precious feeling." And I don't know, it's just, that is a great piece, storytelling piece, and it's good. So awesome. Well, we have one more question, I think, from the audience, and this question is, what aspects of YouTube delighted you the most as you started seeing results, and how would you like to utilize the platform more in the future to make sure, like you were saying, you stay innovative and forward-thinking?
Good question.
I think it's a great question. I think that there's a lot of ways you could answer this question, but for me, it really was about thinking about the Google platform, because when we had used it before, it was a lot of SEM and direct banner placement, and it was how we can use Google platforms for direct response largely, right? But we're not a direct response advertiser, we're a brand advertiser, and I think that was kind of one of the best takeaways about the Google platform for brand advertisers is you can do it. I mean, in a lot of ways, we're now talking about the use of a masthead, almost like a Super Bowl spot, right? The number of impressions that we garnered are not that far off, probably, from what we could have got from a Super Bowl spot. And so thinking about the platform as a brand advertiser and how you can really leverage it, I think was kind of cool.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it will be cornerstone to the video strategy as we go forward. And I mean, again, I can't emphasize enough the true view, and I'm not just saying this because we're on a Google Hangout. I mean, we optimized away from TrueView to from the Lightbox units, which we also had, full videos within Lightbox. And we didn't see as good a traction on the actual video viewing within Lightbox as we did in TrueView. So we're digging into that more, but I do believe that, as a platform for video, they're really, it's hard to compete with it because you guys have it wired, and I think it's something that there's so much learning to be had, and you can optimize so easily that it really is a smart marketing decision. So we'll definitely be part of where we go, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. I just thank you for taking the time. If the people on this Hangout found this content useful, it will be recorded, so you can share it with anybody you'd like to. And I'll just make one more shout out to the case study, which is on Think with Google. Check that out. And yeah, thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Carrie. Bye-bye.
Okay, see you later. Bye.